What's going on, everyone? Welcome to Investing Bros, and we've got a lot to discuss in this morning's video because we had a big altcoin plunge last night. Even further, I'm gonna be honest with you guys, it keeps surprising me how much further we go. But Bitcoin stayed steady, and then this morning, literally within the last hour, we have seen some pumping going on both in Bitcoin and in altcoins. What does this mean? Of course, there's some big news coming out this week. We're going to go ahead and break that down for you guys in this video. So if you are already subscribed, go ahead and smash that like button. If you're new here, thank you so much for choosing our channel. Go ahead and strap on in. We're going to dive into some of this information. So let's start off with the big question. Why were altcoins dropping while Bitcoin kind of stayed stable? There's a couple of people with different opinions, and some of those opinions are over here in this article by Crypto Globe. Certain analysts explain why the price of most altcoins have been crashing in the past few days. This was an article written about some recent thoughts from McKenna. He's a Twitter influencer, kind of taking a look at some different things here. It also talks about Vandepop and Lex. Ultimately, I'm going to sum up the article for you. They pretty much are talking about how this is the week of the Bitcoin ETF. Actually, Michael Vandepop kind of puts it here pretty nicely. Altcoins suffering as Bitcoin ETF week is approaching. Not strange, as the focus is entirely skewed towards Bitcoin. After the ETF, momentum is likely to come back into altcoins. And this was kind of backed up by another interesting theory had by some people over on Reddit in an article covered over here on Crypto Newslands. They speculate, was this a planned altcoin dump ahead of the potential Bitcoin ETF? And they go in and accuse some large institutions. They didn't name what institutions there were, but is this a lot of institutions taking profit right now on all of the altcoins that have had some phenomenal last couple of months since October in preparation for an ETF approval as soon as Wednesday? Of course, we heard this weekend, in case you didn't, BlackRock is expecting their ETF approval by Wednesday. That is their expectation. We're also seeing ARK Invest expect the same as several others. So we're more than likely getting an approval. We're more than likely going to see an ETF get the go-ahead for right now. And then the question is, do we see altcoins go ahead and bounce back? Do we see Bitcoin continue to surge? Vandepop in his article actually speculates he still has his target somewhere around $51,000, and then he expects all of that profit to then swing into altcoins. And the truth is, I'm kind of sitting in a similar boat as Vandepop. I think we get a little bit higher. I still have that target of about 53,000. And I'm going to show you guys here on the charts in just a little bit. Some of you already know what I'm talking about here. But historically, we actually have seen similar movements to what we're seeing right now. We've seen things like this happen, and historically it also implies that the altcoins are not yet done running. Let's take a look actually at historically what has happened in the past. Let's go over to the charts here, and let's look at Bitcoin. Let's go back to a similar time period back in 2019. I want you to pay attention to two different time periods right now. So this is back in 2019, a period that we've talked about before. I told you guys more recently, I thought we were more in this boat, and then we were going to have one more good leg to the upside before we'd have maybe a little bit of a pullback. Back in 2019, we pulled back 50%. I don't think Bitcoin's pulling back 50%, but I still think somewhere between 30 to 40% is a reasonable expectation. But I want you to pay attention to this date right here, May 31st. Let's just say the end of May. We had a peak, a small pullback, and then a pretty large, big gain up here until about, mid to late June. Let's just go and call it late June. So late May, late June, massive difference in price. In fact, if you guys were to just look at the price differences of how high it went after that peak, Bitcoin would peak out in May and then go another 52% to the upside before it was all said and done. Now, Ethereum didn't have too bad of a 2019. Let's go take a look at Ethereum. And to be fair, guys, I think Ethereum is one of the ones we have talked about before. I think it could have another good push again because it really hasn't had a massive run up during this October to right now period. But we see a little bit less of a push on those same time periods. So remember, end of May, end of June. Let's see what the price difference was here. It's not going to be the same. This one, only 27% of a push to the upside. So Bitcoin definitely outpaced Ethereum, even though you see that still is a pretty good second push. We top out at the end of May, have a small pullback, and then go back to the upside. ADA, Cardano, this is where you're going to see, I think, a lot of altcoins potentially look somewhat similar. Did it set newer highs for the year? Yeah, it did. But let's go back and look over here. End of May. Let's see, right in here. So, we had this peak here in April, this peak here middle of May, but then, end of May right here. And then we did have that peak end of June, but look at how little of a difference it was right here. Very, very little, only 9% more to the upside. And it had a pretty good dip down. We actually topped out here, had a good pullback, over 20%. And then we moved back to the upside, but just barely. So you can see here, whereas the altcoins, Ethereum was the same. Good upswing, just like Bitcoin. But then the difference is May and June, it just did not have the same pop that we did see in Bitcoin. Now, there are other coins like Solana weren't around. Link was a newer coin. You can take a look at what Link did, but like I said, it was a newer coin that a lot of different things were happening. What were the dates here? May and let's see. Yeah, the difference here, Link would go on to have its own thing. End of May, end of June, there was a higher spike, not as much as Bitcoin. Let's see what the difference in price was here. If I can grab this tool right here. It was a good 39%, so better than Ethereum and Cardano, but Link, of course, was on a little mind of its own. Again, newer coin happening. You're going to see XRP was definitely around here. XRP, not yet in its lawsuit, having a very weird 2019. You're going to see May and June. End of May is going to come in right here. End of June right here. So again, another kind of disappointing. Did it go higher? Yes, it went higher, but it wasn't necessarily the greatest. Last one we're going to take a look at, Litecoin. And I'm just going to kind of wrap this up after this one because I think you guys are starting to get the point. And then I'll make it over on Bitcoin. But here we go. End of May coming in right here. End of June. Did we have a little bit higher of a push? Yes, we did, but nowhere near as significant as Bitcoin. My point here, I would not be surprised, ladies and gentlemen, to see Bitcoin have a bigger swing to the upside. I think we're playing out here the end of June in this pump. Not going to be surprised to see Bitcoin swing back up, potentially come up to 53,000. I mentioned that earlier. The reason why is because of the fixed range volume profile. When you look at all the volume in this last bull market, we have a nice little gap right here at 53,000. A lot of times we end up making our moves to those gaps, but I'm not going to be surprised to see Bitcoin with a much, much higher peak than this high that we had here in December. Whereas when you're looking at the likes of Cardano, not going to be surprised to see a high right here. In December, we hit 67 cents. At this point, we might only get to 70 cents, maybe 75 cents here with Cardano, but not much higher of a push there. Not going to be surprised to see Solana. We peaked out here all the way up at 120. Not going to be surprised if we barely make it back to 120, maybe make a push to 130. Not crazy new all-time highs. Same thing with Link. Not going to be surprised if we only make a push up towards 18. I've been talking about 18 for a while. We keep getting close and then pulling back down. Not going to be surprised to see that. But what does that mean? That means that all of these coins, even though they've been having these big pullbacks, even though they're coming back down, they should make one more push to the upside. If you guys are freaking out and thinking, man, I got to start selling all of my altcoins, I think you're a little bit late. I think if you had timed this correctly, and again, it's hard to predict these things, but yeah, I think a lot of institutions, I think these analysts that we covered at the beginning were right. I think a lot of institutions were selling off in anticipation of the ETF, but guess what? The ETF is going to get approved. It's going to bring hype back in, and that hype's not just coming to Bitcoin. It's going to come back to alts. It's just not going to be as much of an impressive run-up. If you're expecting crazy new highs, like we've talked about before, Cardano potentially hitting $1, I told you guys last week, I think based off of the dip, and this is before the significant dip last night, where we went even lower, based off this dip, I told you guys I thought $1 is a little steep for right now. More than likely, we're going to see Bitcoin again climb to new highs for the year, 53,000 or so. I think Cardano potentially does set new highs towards 70 cents, but it's not significantly higher than where we were. Solana similar. Maybe we get back to 120, but not a lot higher than that. And we wait for a big pullback before the real bull market starts later on this year. One of the reasons why you guys should feel good about that also, though, is that, we're here on the daily chart. You guys are seeing some massive pullbacks on the oscillators here. Solana is one of the ones definitely seeing some strong bullish divergence forming here. You guys know we talked about Cardano a lot. Massive bullish divergence for Cardano. We got a lot of room to the upside. Bitcoin pumping as we are speaking right now. Look for a move the rest of today, potentially back up to where we peaked out here, up at $46,000. You'll actually see when we pull up our Lux Algo, we're going to see we actually have a little bit higher than that. There's a scalp trade on the daily chart that's saying that we could get even all the way up to 46.5, potentially up all the way to 49,000. Little high for right now. Today, let's look at 46 as being a good target to look for. But if you're saying, Tim, should I be taking profit at 46,000? I do not think so, because I think this is just the beginning. This is about to be a very explosive week, definitely for Bitcoin. Do not be surprised if the altcoins lag just a little bit behind. But if you're saying, Tim, is it nowhere but down? Should I start shorting altcoins? I do believe it's a little too soon for that. But let me know down in the comments, what do you guys think? Do you think this was institutions and whales selling off in anticipation of the ETF and the altcoins about to rally back? Is the top in for altcoins, and should you be shorting? Let me know down in the comments below. The rest of you, go ahead and smash that like button if you enjoyed this video, and hit subscribe, because we are only 100 subscribers away from 7,000. And when we hit 7,000, we will be doing a $100 giveaway to one of our subscribers. You definitely want to be a part of that. Make sure you watch every single live show this week to hear the details of that giveaway. But with that said, guys, that's all I have for you in this video. I'll see you in the next one.